What I look for in a 5-inch Freestyle quadcopter frame is reasonable durability, but not so much durability that it makes the quadcopter heavy. I usually like to shoot for a weight around 110 to 120, maybe 125 grams. To me, that's the right balance of durability, but lightweight for agility and so forth. I want flexibility. I don't want to be limited by the design of the frame, what video transmitter I can put in the back, what flight controller I can pick to put in the front. And I want it to be easy to live with and easy to maintain. And today, the quadcopter frame that we're looking at seems like it might tick all of those boxes. This is the Quadmula Siren F5. Well, I guess we're going to have to put it together. I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. I always put a disclosure on these product reviews so you can know whether there might be anything that's influencing my opinion. And this one's a little bit of a weird one because I did purchase this frame. I bought it. $75-ish for this frame, ordered it. And then when the box came, they apparently recognized my name because they threw in a couple of other frames that they thought I might want to try. So, there you go. Now I've disclosed that, and we can get on with the video. And boy, you can't fault Quadmula on their packaging. They have really taken pride in their designs. This is not just a bag of carbon fiber straight out of China. Oh my goodness, it's even bubble wrapped on the inside. Sheesh. Wow, okay. Well, this is one of the nicest packaged frames I've ever seen. I'm gonna figure out something to do with that. There's probably a use for it. Here's everything that comes in the box, and I'm gonna get rid of some of this because I already know I'm not gonna like it. I don't want to start this video off on a negative tone, but like, let me just get this negative stuff out of the way and then we'll get on with the build. The battery straps are incredibly basic, cheap battery straps. They are not rubberized. They are not Kevlar. They are just, they're just, I wouldn't use them. I prefer to use rubberized battery straps because they grip the battery better. Some people like Kevlar battery straps because they're way more durable, but they're also thicker and heavier, but there's just no place on my quad. If you lose your battery, your quad may not come home. Don't cheap out on battery straps. Manufacturers, stop putting cheap battery straps in with your bind and flies. Just don't put battery straps in at all if you're going to put cheap ones in, because somebody out there is using them and maybe losing their battery as a result. Speaking of battery, this battery pad that comes with the quadcopter, I complain about these on every frame review that I do. The problem with them is, well, this one isn't even particularly thick and it is not grippy. It is not going to prevent the battery from sliding out. I want to show you, look, it doesn't stick to the battery pad. That right in the trash. You want to use a grippy battery pad. Like this is the original grippy battery pad made by It is called Grip, and you just see you see how grippy it is? It literally, that sticks to it. Your battery will be much less likely to slide out if you use grippy battery pad and you use rubberized grippy battery straps. This to me is a must, and that's all I use. So with that out of the way, now let's look at the rest of the frame. We're going to start the build with this bottom plate. The Quadmula assembly video shows these press nuts being installed by the user, but mine came with them pre-installed. If you ever have trouble installing press nuts, the easiest way to do it is to get an M3 nut and an M3 washer and actually just put it through the press nut and literally screw the press nut down into the carbon. Other methods that I've used, like tapping them in with kind of a hammer or something, they just don't seem to work as well and as controllable. Just make sure that you don't strip the press nut by putting the screw in too tight or too fast. Next, we're going to take this carbon fiber piece and this bag labeled stack screws. And by the way, I love that each of the bags of hardware is labeled with the application of the hardware. So we're going to take this piece and we're going to put it longwise with the, do you see that there's countersink holes here? Those countersink holes are going to face out, and we're going to have this on the flat side of the frame plate that is not the side the press nuts are sticking out on, right? Okay. And then we're going to get these M2 screws, and they're going to go up through and through these press nuts and screw. There's going to be 4 of them. And we'll screw this piece in place. And this is actually the part of the frame that I am most on the fence about. If there was one thing that was going to make me decide that this wasn't the frame for me, I think this is it. Oof, that's two negative things right at the beginning of the video. I really want to like this frame though. Because these are the stack screws. And they are M2 screws. And there's a reason why they've done it this way. They've tried to do something clever. I think they may have been a little too clever for their own good. Let me finish screwing these in and then I'll tell you what I mean. This DeWalt Driver is amazing. It's like $80. Phantom FPV bought it for me for Christmas one year as a surprise. And since someone else bought it for me, it's amazing and I'm so happy to have it. If you want to spend $80 on a driver, I'll put a link to this in the video description below. But I don't blame you if you think that's ridiculous and just use a regular screwdriver. The reason Quadmula uses M2 screws for the stack screws is that they provide you with this plastic tubing. I don't know, I guess it's silicone probably. And the idea is that you're going to put the plastic tubing over the screws and you're going to cut the plastic tubing off. And that is going to provide vibration isolation for your flight controller and your ESC. And that's clever, but it's too clever. And I think it's a bad idea because these M2 screws are going to be much less durable than the M3 screws that are typically used for stack screws. And when I asked people for feedback on this frame on my Discord server, this was one of the #1 complaints. They love this frame, but in crashes, they bent the stack screws. Not everyone, but a lot of them did. And, you know, it'd be one thing if this was like a 3-inch that weighs 250 or 300 grams, but this is going to be a 5-inch. It's going to weigh 600, 700, maybe more grams, and it's going to have a lot of energy when it crashes. And I just feel like you're going to bend these stack screws. And the silly thing about this is that all flight controllers and ESCs made today have their own vibration isolation. They have vibration isolation gummies on them. Therefore, I don't see any reason to put vibration isolation in the frame. Nobody is hard mounting their flight controller and ESC. I wish that this frame was available with M3 screws because I have a feeling I'm going to like this frame, but this feature alone might turn out to be a deal breaker. So I'm just going to cut this off and thread it onto the other screws. The other thing I noticed is that there's no mounting solution for a 20mm flight controller and ESC. It seems to only take 30mm size, and that's fine with me because I think 30mm is the right way to go for 5-inch anyway. You don't save that much weight by going with 20mm on a 5-inch frame, and I think the ESCs are way more durable and the flight controllers are easier to work with. But not everybody agrees with that, especially racers. Some people would want to put a 20mm flight controller here, and they're just not going to be able to do it. In theory, you could put it in the rear. The rear has both 20 and 25mm mounting, and then you could, are you going to put your video transmitter? I don't know, you figure it out. But basically, this is not for somebody who wants to run a 20mm ESC and flight controller stack. The instructional video next shows the arms going in like this, but I don't think that's going to actually be the easiest way to do it. I think what we should do is we should get the other bottom plate and we should loosely install it, and then we should put the arms in while it's holding them together. Here are the bottom plate screws. Loving this organization. The second bottom plate is going to line up like so. These 4 holes are going to make room for where you could remove the stack screws. If you wanted to, you wouldn't have to disassemble the whole thing. So that's going to line up, and then you're going to have these countersunk holes here, and you're going to want to make sure those are countersunk side out, not flat side out. So we'll line that up, and we will get these countersunk screws. Are we going to use the long ones? Those are longer than they need to be. That seems correct. We're going to use these countersunk screws, and they're going to go into these inner holes here loosely and into these press nuts. So we've got 4 countersunk screws loosely in those screw holes, and now we can install the arms and just kind of put them in. And then we're going to get the other 4 of those screws and put them in the remaining holes. By the way, there are several different sizes and type of screw in this kit. Some of them are not countersunk and some are countersunk but are much longer. Oh, the longer ones are going to go to the outside. Yes, I see. So the longer ones are going to go to the outside, and then they will presumably go into a standoff. This arm design does allow for one screw arm change if the arm does break. This screw will come out, and then I think these remaining screws will need to be loosened at least a little bit, but then the arm will slide out and the replacement arm will go in. I also really like that the C-lock mechanism really increases the amount of surface area between the arm and the little sort of club-shaped, the oval-shaped piece that it touches up against. It means that these guys are really locked in there and there's not a lot of room for them to wiggle. Even if we loosen the screws, I don't think they're going to wiggle very much. So here I've loosened these two screws and still the arm just doesn't go anywhere. The frame that we're building is the Siren F5 split, and that means that the bottom plate is split between the front of the quad and the rear. On the rear, the plate is on top of the arms, and on the front it's on the bottom, and they sandwich the arms. What that means is that when we put the top plate on, we're going to have a relatively low top deck. It's going to be almost like a slammed frame where everything is squished together for a very centralized mass, and that gives good handling and better durability. But the front of the frame, you want just a little bit more height for the camera, and a split deck frame accomplishes that. In addition, split deck frames tend to have better resonance characteristics. You can pid tune them easier and push the pid tune farther. That's obviously, there can be exceptions and the frame has to be well designed, but in general, this is one of the better 5-inch frame designs you could pick. It's worth pointing out, Quadmula does have a non-split version of the Siren F5 if you prefer a standard, just full height all the way through version of the frame. Next, we're going to take this piece, and this is really surprising to me. I'm not sure why they've done this. So this piece has the notches milled out of it for the camera side plates. You'll see those in just a second. Most frame designers would just have milled that out of the bottom plate. Maybe as this comes together, we will sort of understand the logic here, but for now, this is really confusing me. We're going to continue using these screws. There are two slightly longer M3 screws in the bottom plate hardware, and then two slightly shorter ones for the top plate. And I think what we should do is, yeah, see, those are going to fall out. I think we should get some standoffs and put them on there to hold these screws in place. These standoffs are aluminum, and they are made of 7075 aluminum alloy. That is the stronger, lighter, more expensive aluminum alloy compared to the 6000 series. I don't remember the exact number that we would more commonly find. They are marked with their length. Some are 20 millimeters, some are 25. We're going to grab the 25 millimeter ones, and we're just going to screw them down here. These two pieces are the camera side plates, and I want you to notice that part of it has been sort of milled away. I wonder if that's to make room for like the DJI 03 camera, which needs a little bit more room. The assembly instructions don't show this milling, so I wonder if these pieces were originally just full thickness and they shaved out a ½ millimeter. I don't know, but the milled part is going to go to the inside, and the thick part is going to go on the top, and they are going to just set down into these little slots. I dig that the camera plates go up against these standoffs. That's going to give just, I don't know if they're going to want to spread out, but I like when things are braced up against things. It makes them stronger. And then, is that it? Then we put the top plate on. I think the only thing left is to put the top plate on. Now that the frame's assembled, we can get a better sense of what it's about. And the first thing I want to do, of course, is weigh it. And it comes in at 107 grams. This is a really impressive weight. And as I said earlier, to me, this is the sweet spot between reasonable durability. This is not going to be the frame that you would choose if you spend all day smashing into concrete walls at full speed. You're going to want something closer to the 140 to 180 gram, or maybe even a little heavier weight size. But for somebody like me who spends a lot of time flying around trees and crashing into grass and dirt, this is a great balance between agility, You can get a 700 gram build out of this with a GoPro on it, no problem. This is a great balance between agility and durability. The rear of the frame has plenty of room for any video transmitter that you want to put in here. There is 20 and 25 millimeter mounting. Some of these video transmitters, like the HD0 Freestyle or the Walk Snail, are going to hang out over the edge, and that may compromise durability. Another thing that people in my Discord server said when I asked them for feedback on this frame was they've cut away like a waistline here and here, and I suppose they did that to save weight, but one of the side effects of that is that like your ESC is going to hang out here, and some video transmitters are going to hang out here, and that means they'll be more likely to take a hit and be damaged. Some of the folks on the Discord server wished that they had had just a little more material here to help protect those. The height between the bottom and the top is 20 millimeters. And that's going to be fine for experienced builders who know how to pack their flight controller and their ESC together. But inexperienced builders, or those who just want a little bit more room to let their electronics breathe, are going to be better off picking the standard version of the Siren F5, not the split deck version. That one has 25 millimeter height all the way across. These two circular holes in the back of the quadcopter have an unexpected and very clever intent. You see, normally you would mount your ESC here in the center of the frame, and then you'd have to decide which direction you want the battery lead to come out. A lot of people like the battery lead to come out the rear of the ESC because it's convenient to have the XT60 here in the rear, mount your battery on top, plug it in, and everything is neatly out of the way. But the problem with that is that those big battery wires coming out here take up a lot of room, and they won't fit with a lot of modern digital video transmitters. What Quadmula has done is put these two holes here, and the ESC XT60 leads can come out these holes, up through the back here, and up through this channel here to come out right here. That means you still get your XT60 coming out the back, but you don't take up any room here inside the frame from your video transmitter. Of course, there's also a hole here at the front, and if you prefer to have the XT60 come out the front, you just flip your ESC around 180 degrees. You can do that, and my preference is actually to side mount the ESC and have it come out the side, but really, you could do this any way you want. Very clever. The durability of the frame seems like it would be improved if this front end was more boxed in. If, for example, these side plates extended back further and maybe even sat in on top here of the arms. I'm not sure the exact best way to do it. I'm not a frame designer. But the more we were able to extend this back, the more resistance there would be to the sort of diagonal stress in a frontal impact. Right now, we just don't have a lot of resistance to that stress, and it seems like you're going to be more likely to wind up after a crash with like a bent standoff or a bent screw. And it seems like it wouldn't add that much weight to extend that back just a little bit further. Quadmula have done something really smart with their GoPro mount, and I hope that every other frame designer completely steals this idea. Actually, Quadmula didn't invent this. Catalyst Machine Works was the first I ever saw do this, and for all I know, somebody did it before them. But here's the problem that they've solved. The problem is that when you have a GoPro mount made out of TPU, you put screws down through the GoPro mount, and then they squish the TPU. And either the TPU just rips through, or the screws are too loose and the frame isn't held together securely. TPU is squishy, and so pressing it together with a structural frame screw is a bad idea. And yeah, we all do it, and yeah, we get away with it, but it's not ideal. What Quadmula have done is oversize the holes in the GoPro mount and then given you these things. And these little inserts, I was going to call them washers, they're not washers. These little inserts just go in like so, and then a countersunk screw goes down through them, and then you are pressing metal on carbon. The TPU is completely constrained, but you're not squishing it and you're not trying to tear it out. This is fantastic. I do it a little differently on mine. This has nothing to do with the Quadmula frame, but I just want to show you because I think everybody should rip off this idea. What I do on mine is I just have an insert, a sleeve, if you will. I don't even have these fancy little, like, I don't know, how much are these if you buy them off the street? You don't need a countersunk screw. You just need to oversize the hole just a little bit and put this metal insert in there, and boom, same effect. Cheaper, easier. Everybody, steal this, please. It's so much better. I'm really impressed with this frame. Quadmula have clearly put a lot of thought into this frame design, but they haven't made it overcomplicated and overwrought. It is still relatively simple, relatively easy to build. It comes in right at the perfect weight for somebody like me who does freestyle in a more forgiving environment, not like an asphalt concrete bando basher. The arm brace mechanism is great. There's only two things about this frame that I think would scare me away. One of them is, as I said before, the M2 stack screws. My God, please, Quadmula, release a version of this with M3 hardware just so we have the choice. But yeah, the M3 hardware is just a must. I don't know what you do in there. And the other thing is that, like, look at this bag of spare parts that they sent me. It's got all kinds of parts, including some 3D printed parts I didn't even show you. There's tons of accessories available for this on the Quadmula site. But like, it feels like they've used some slightly out of the ordinary parts on this, and they expect you to go back to them and buy spare parts from them, and you're going to be paying a little bit of a markup as opposed to just buying, you know, just off the shelf parts from anywhere else. But I guess nothing is stopping you from just going and buying off the shelf parts and doing it the way everybody else does. The reason you bought this frame is because you want the sort of specialness that it brings to the table, and it is pretty special. I'm pretty impressed with it. If you're impressed with it and you want to pick it up, there are links in the video description below. There's even a 3-inch version, and I didn't even tell you about the mini version. It's a 5-inch but a little bit more compact, so you get just a little bit less room on the props, and it's even smaller and even lighter. There's tons of different variants, and they all have the same level of thought and innovation. There's links down below to where you can pick them up. Some of them are affiliate links, so it really means a lot when you use those links, because I get a little commission every time you click an affiliate link and then make a purchase. Whatever you buy, click the link, make a purchase, I get a commission. Easy way for you to support the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Here's what you got to do though. If you're looking for a frame that is actually super durable, like nearly indestructible, I got two frames I think you should check out. One of them is the Flyfish Volador, and one of them is the Rotor Riot Tank. And these frames are super heavy, 180 to 200 grams-ish. And they're going to fly different. Some would say fly worse. But you're going to be able to beat the crap out of them all day long, and they are not going to break. And for some people, that means that that's going to be the choice over this. I got cards on screen if you want to check out those videos, and links in the video description if you can't see the card for some reason. See you there.